I decided to do my project on muscular dystrophy. I specifically wanted to look at Duchenne muscular dystrophy because it is the most common form here in the US. And my name is Sarah Cantola, so this is my project on muscular dystrophy. So first we want to look at what is muscular dystrophy, and this is muscle degeneration due to the alterations of the protein dystrophin. Now, this is a genetic disorder when there is a mutation in the X chromosome that causes the problems with the protein. The main symptom of this disorder is muscle weakness, and mostly the muscles towards the center of the body will be affected first, and then it will be followed by the limbs. With the limbs, the legs usually are weaker than the arms as they develop. So some of the signs of muscular dystrophy will be difficulty learning to walk, and just overall noticeably a person or a child will be noticeably weaker than, say, other people at their age and stage of development. So if a kid is learning to walk, it might take them a lot longer. If they're getting up off the floor, it might look a lot more strenuous. When they're running with their friends, they might be behind noticeably, and these are signs of muscular dystrophy. A misleading sign is enlarged calves, and it seems like that the calves would be stronger since they're bigger, but this is actually a sign of weakness and that they might have muscular dystrophy. Some of the other symptoms are running, jumping, and other movements becoming difficult. Just because of the muscle weakness, overall mobility is more difficult. A weakened respiratory system leads to headaches, difficulty breathing, and difficulty concentrating. Because there are muscles within the respiratory system, it does make airflow harder to get into the body and can have these negative side effects. All my symptoms came from the Muscular Dystrophy Association, and that is the source I also used for my age of onset, prevalence, and prognosis information. So the onset is between ages 2 and 3. Again, this is when you notice the developmental issues that can occur, such as the learning how to walk slower or the being a slower runner than the other children, troubles getting up off the ground, things like that. For the prevalence, it is primarily in boys, like most genetic disorders, but it also can occur in girls. In the United States, 6 in 100,000 people have Duchenne muscular dystrophy, so that is how common it is in the US. For prognosis and kind of how their life looks like, people with muscular dystrophy usually start using a wheelchair at the age of 12. They might start using it just part-time, just when they need it. So if they're noticing walking is becoming more difficult for long periods of time, they might walk and then start using the wheelchair just on a need basis, but it usually does develop into a full-time use. The more fatal impacts of Duchenne muscular dystrophy are within the heart and respiratory system. Because the heart is a muscle itself, once it weakens, it becomes harder to support the body. And the respiratory system, like I mentioned earlier, if you have problems with getting air into your system, it can have a lot of deadly complications. So the life expectancy has been increasing, which is great, and it's due to the increased technology and research that has been going into muscular dystrophy, and so now living around 30 is fairly common. So new technology that has been used for people with muscular dystrophy has been virtual reality used in physical therapy. I personally work at a physical therapy clinic, so this was really interesting for me to learn about. I did read a case study about the effects of virtual reality used with physical therapy for people with muscular dystrophy, and it did say that it furthered their physical abilities and made them last longer, so it was beneficial there. I also watched a YouTube video from a neuro VR physical therapy clinic, and they didn't work with any patients specifically with muscular dystrophy, but they did work with many patients in the video who had other impairments, and they saw a lot of benefits and talked about their experiences using the VR for physical therapy, and it does have a lot of benefits. So some of the benefits are if the patient is able to stand up, or they're using a support system to be able to stand up, whether that be an exoskeleton or having some sort of suspension to allow them to use their legs, that is helping their legs with their muscles, so it's helping build that muscle, help improve their strength. It also helps improve their balance because they're having to use their legs, having to stand on their legs, so it helps in those two areas for their lower extremities. For the upper extremities, they are usually doing games and put in situations where they also need to use their arms, so it also helps strengthen those arms. And because they're usually playing a game or doing something in the VR headset, they're having to multitask by thinking and focusing on the task at hand while also using their body. So this helps the patient kind of separate the need to be so focused on their body, and it allows them to gain that sense of being able to multitask, moving their body and using their brain at the same time for that task. So it's really helpful. Also, in terms of physical therapy, it is a very hard, strenuous activity to be working your body like this, especially when your muscles are going through this change and degenerating. So it's also activities that help kind of get your mind off of the physical therapy and makes it a more enjoyable experience for them. So this was the technology, the symptoms, the age of onset, prognosis, prevalence of muscular dystrophy. I learned a lot in researching this topic, and I feel like I'm really better off for learning about it. I think it is a disability that isn't talked about as much, but it is really important.